Hello, you're listening to Art Dust with Glenda Gibson
Donna Druin.
and today we're talking about rest. So you can have a nap.
Yeah.
Rest is a phenomenally important biblical concept. We know that God, rested on the seventh day after creating everything.
I often think he had a rest before.
Well, a very long rest, possibly. We don't know, do we?
No.
Good point, Donna. I like that a lot.
But there's a nothing before. And, and I always think that I work out of rest. I don't work to rest. Does that make sense? I work out of the rest I've had.
Yeah. It was a Chris Bowaterism, wasn't it?
It was.
Work from rest, not rest from work. So you work out of your rest. But somebody was saying to me that the rest wasn't because God was tired, but it was because he wanted to celebrate what he'd made. And yes. I think after we've done a big art thing, like Donna and I have just finished 3 weeks of exhibition, feels like only yesterday, although it was a week ago now.
I know.
But
I was exhausted
resting.
last week. I was shattered. It's all the smiling and nodding and going, yes, this is great. Yeah, this is well. This way, Yeah. It's exhausting because there was a lot of people on the last weekend. I'm not complaining. That was fantastic.
It was really good. It was good overall. I mean, there's always things you can improve, but not enough of the exhibition.
Yes.
What I'm trying to say is that when you've done a body of work or an exhibition or something, you need to make sure you give yourself a time to rest and recover and restore and to celebrate the good stuff that happens. Because even if it wasn't perfect, there's always good things that come out of the stuff we're doing. It's always learning and good things.
It is always good.
Yeah.
But rest is really, really important as a whole thing of knowing what rest is, what you need, what rest is to you. It might not be, yesterday I had a day off and I spent the day in books, just very happily, just with a pile of books. And that was my rest day. And I felt so much better for it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, some people need to, they're energized by being with other people.
Yeah.
And some people need a lot of alone time. I'm an alone time person. But even if you're somebody that needs to be with other people a lot to energize you, it's still good to do the coming away, the being still. Jesus regularly went up on the mountain to pray on his own. He, be still and know that I am God. Very common scripture.
Yes, I often go for a walk. I also like going for walks. Being reset, having a reset. It is resetting yourself. It's like, I've exhausted myself. I need to refill and replenish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you about so in the middle of the exhibition one Friday, I just thought I need a rest day because we're working on Saturday and Sunday, so there was no weekend rest day. So I took a bit of a rest day on the Friday during the exhibition time and just tried to chill. And I did go for a long walk because that's one of the things that helps to reset me as well. And what was astonishing about that rest day is that I had an explosion of creativity. It just all bubbled up and popped out, and I decided we should talk about rest in the podcast and all sorts of other things that went whizzing through my head, but they weren't whizzing in a stressful way. It was just the flowing up from the rest of all the creativity. And this happens time and time and time again to me. The other thing is that art helps me find my rest as well. My little everyday practices, not my big projects. They can be quite exhausting and stressful. But yeah, we'll talk about the whole process in another podcast. But here we want to talk about how important rest is. Like it is an essential bit. You can't leave this bit out. So
No.
I'm going to give some other examples. Not that long ago, I went with a friend to a presentation about this book. It's called The Sounds of Musings, and yes, it is based on The Sound of Music by Bryony Wood. She's a minister, but she's also a writer. So what happened to her is that she retired from being a priest, and then lockdown happened. So she had lockdown and not the responsibilities she had before. And she decided, well, I've loved The Sound of Music since I was a child. I think I can make it into a devotional book. And she sat down, watched The Sound of Music, and there are 52 devotional references from The Sound of Music, the Bible, and prayer in her book. And now she's traveling the world promoting the book and the whole process. That creativity came out of rest.
Yeah.
You know, she didn't have a job. She couldn't go anywhere because of COVID. She thought, well, I'll do this thing that's been bubbling up inside of me, and it happened. And another example I can give is I couldn't work out quite how to do this prophetic painting. It was water splashing down onto my hands. And I had a nap one day, and as I woke up out of the nap, I knew it had to be a watercolor, which I don't normally paint in watercolor, but that particular image had to be a watercolor. And it just came to me out of my sleep, out of my rest. It just popped forward. Also, the dragonfly painting that I've talked about before, that came out of a time of rest. God just showed me after a nap. Naps are good for creativity. They certainly are for me. And that's just a couple of examples. But I don't know, Donna, have you got an example, a specific one or not?
A specific one. Well, other than the fact that it's that replenishing of yourself and refueling yourself, because you need to let your, well, actually, I think there's a thing about being, when you get to a point where you've been pushing and pushing and pushing, because there's all the pressure of before an exhibition or a time or a concert or something, and there's all that preparation work that goes in before, and then there's the time when the work is up or you're doing the thing, and then there's that you get kind of, I get this bone tiredness. It's like I feel really depleted, and I have to make sure that I either go out and spend some time in nature, or as I did yesterday, books. But otherwise I start not being able to make decisions, and I start sort of questioning everything, and I find myself not feeling able to do, and start questioning, am I a nutter? Am I doing this art stuff because, and the tiredness affects my mood. Whereas as soon as I go and do the things that replenish me, I'm fine again. And I just, I couldn't make a decision about. So I knew as soon as I sat down and started going through my books about, well, actually, yes, this is the right thing. I have to do this. I have to sit here and do this. And there is a discipline to rest. There is a discipline to allowing yourself that time, because it also affects the others around you. It's not easy. It's not easy having a day of rest amongst having children at home and mad DIY projects that you decide to do at spur of the moment.
Yeah, I remember as a mother with my 5 children that I made sure I went to bed at a reasonable time, between 10 and 11 back then. It's 10 now.
Yeah.
But because otherwise I was so grumpy and horrible the next day that I wasn't being a good mother. So it was my responsibility to be a good mother, to make sure I had the rest I need. Now it's my responsibility to be a good artist, to make sure I take rest. And it can be a really big chunk of rest. Sometimes it'll take me till 4 o'clock in the afternoon before I've settled down and calmed down and found my peace enough
Yeah.
to sit and be creative. Sometimes it takes me as long as that.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like Paul's, my husband's been doing a huge amount of work. He's been doing 6-day weeks for a few weeks, and that's fine. You know, that is overtime. It's nice, but he was really tired, and he went to go and do a silly. He wanted to make a spoon. He makes wooden spoons all the time, but he picked up the wrong tool to do the wrong job, and the following day after and he hurt himself. I mean, it was all right. He got away with it.
Didn't lose any fingers.
Didn't lose any fingers. But he said to me the following day, he said, I wasn't thinking straight. I was so tired. I even had it in my head that I needed to use an axe to do this job. And then I couldn't find the axe I was looking for. And I picked up the wrong axe. Now, if he'd picked up the right axe that he was looking for, he would have lost his finger because the other axe is sharper and they just cut the hone different ways. And he said, well, thank goodness I couldn't find the axe I was looking for. But if he'd been really thinking correctly, he wouldn't have used an axe at all. He would have picked up a knife. And he said the next day he was going, I can't believe I got away with it. I was like, well, you know, but he was tired. It affects how you process, and you're not being fully aware of what you're doing. If you're tired, you're not fully being sensible with your tools. I know that I accidentally, if I'm lino cutting, I will cut myself. If I'm really tired, I'm like, oh no, I need to stop and I need to walk away and then come back.
Yeah. I mean that's when you're really tired.
Yeah.
But I think we see it as a luxury and something we can't give ourselves, that sort of rest, that we're lazy if we have a day off and whatever, but it's not. It's very much a God-given gift. And yes, I like your idea that nothing happened before creation. So maybe God was having a nice long rest before he got creating.
Yeah, he was filling up on all the
it.
energy before he started. Yeah,
that's brilliant. And then, you know, he had to keep a universe going in his spare time, sort of. But he's God; he can do that sort of stuff. I want to tell you some other stuff. So I have the privilege of being one of the. It's not proofreading, but it's reading for. To give feedback to a writer who's Jorn
beta
Lang.
tester.
A beta tester, am I? I haven't done this for him before, but I have read it for a few other people, which is amazing since I'm dyslexic and goodness only knows what. But anyway, his latest book, he's written several books and they're good. He's a German. He lives in Cyprus. He works with a Youth for a Mission, and he runs a creative arts mission, or they run a creative arts mission once a year, which Don and I can never get to. But anyway, one day we'll head to Cyprus. But his books are academic and very to the point in that very German way. But they're fantastic. He's done a whole book on all the ways different forms of art are in the Bible. So if you're a dancer, he'll show you where dance is through the Bible, or a potter or whatever, you know. It's all in there. It was really, really fab book, that one. But he's written another book, and it's Creating from a Place of Rest, it's called. It's not available yet because it's not gone to print yet. So it's a whole book about where rest is in the Bible and a whole thinking about rest. And one of the first things he brings up is salah, that word that you'll find in the Psalms. Yeah. So they don't actually know the exact meaning of it, but they think it's stop and take a breath, the be still, the think, the pause, or the the breathing out. You know, when you do something and you go, oh yeah, you sort of breathe out. So, you know, that salah, that pausing and resting and giving yourself a break in between the next lot of thinking and doing is right there in the middle of Psalms. Be still and know that I am God. It's in the Psalms. There's lots of references to this pausing and resting. So that's that's one book about rest. But another one is, you've probably, Donna's got it as well.
Oh,
Oh, mine's like this, looks like that.
there you go.
Okay,
What else?
two versions of it.
There was a
So this-
workbook that goes with this as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
So it's Lauren Winner, Lauren F. Winner. Unfortunately, she has died, which is a real shame because she's a great writer.
She is.
So Mudhouse Sabbath is she was a Jew and she converted to Christianity. So of course she didn't have to do the Jewish Sabbath anymore, but of course she had a sort of a Sunday Sabbath rest, and she really missed it. She really missed the Jewish Sabbath, the really proper stopping. And they do it. Jews rest from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. So it's 24 hours, but it's not, it's like that. And they have to do all the work by sundown Friday. And then they have some Jewish prayers. And they are not allowed to do, it depends how strict you are, different strictnesses of Jews. But there's lots of things they're not allowed to do. And if you read the Gospels, you can see how upset the Pharisees and Sadducees were about Sabbath rules that Jesus seemed to be breaking all the time, like healing on the Sabbath and grains of wheat and whatever. But so she really missed the Sabbath. She missed that sort of high level of resting and stopping and just resting. And also, it's a family time.
Yeah.
It's for family. And actually, Jorn, in his writing about peace and rest, he makes it clear that that is about family as well. Although family can be exhausting at times, but it is about closing in and
being together,
resting with family, and having that sort of break and restoration in that way.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything else about this? Mudhouse Sabbath?
Yeah, I really like in the first chapter. I think it's the first chapter. She talks about going for a coffee, and how she used to feel going for a coffee. She felt guilty for having a coffee. Then she started thinking, well, if I go for a coffee, and I have a coffee, and I make sure that and I pay enough. Am I enabling the other person behind the counter who's serving me a rest? Do they get to have a Sabbath, or do they have to have two jobs? Or are they being enabled to actually rest like I can have a rest? Because rest is not just for me, it's for everyone around me. Because then if we all manage to have a rest, and we all slow down, I really like that whole thing, that it's not just about, it's about being fair, the fair trade, sort of looking after everyone around you, as well as rest, as not just your own personal rest.
Yeah.
I was laughing because my husband, we've been discussing the 20-mile-per-hour thing. And I was going, because you have to be more aware that when you're driving past schools in certain districts, you should slow down. It should be 20 miles per hour. I said, it's slowing you down. And he was like, well, what is your obsession with slowing me down? I said, because when you rushing everywhere, you make mistakes and you don't react fast enough. And actually being slower gives you time to react, gives you time to think, gives you time to make better decisions. So, yes.
I mean, it's extraordinary how much you get done if you slow down.
It is.
As I say, I can spend all day overwhelmed, flapping around, getting this done, getting that done, and by 4 o'clock I'm calm. And then a couple of hours or an hour, I've done loads because I've got to the right place. But it just wouldn't have happened if I was doing it in that tense and overwhelmed place that I certainly can be in quite a lot of the time. One of our friends, God told him to worship in the morning and write in the afternoon. A whole morning of spending time with God and worshiping. It feels like it could be a waste, but obviously it's not. It gets your soul and your mind and even your body in the right place. And another friend said to me, don't pick up a paintbrush until you've prayed.
Yeah.
Now, she obviously wasn't saying, dear Lord, help me paint well today with my paintbrush. What she meant by pray was stopping and taking your time and worshipping God and finding your peace with God before you get into your creating.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the creating so much more when I come from that place.
Yeah. I do. It feels like it flows better. It feels like it actually I can't quite put my finger on it. It does. It feels like the ideas just when I've done that, it's part of the flow thing. The rest is part of flow, but that's another podcast. But yeah, the whole actually how you lead your days. I had a friend who she said to me that God told her to get up earlier so she could pray before the day started, before anybody else got up, so she could spend time with God in the quietness. And then he said, and I will replenish you. And she did. She said, no, it's not affected her energy at all. She just gets up. She just prays very early. And she's, yeah.
Well, it actually energizes you coming from that place. As I said, I got this day of rest and then pshum, all this stuff. And it was joyful and it was wonderful. All this creativity just came. And you will hear people say that if you've got a mental block or an artist block or whatever, do something different, take a break, go for a walk, stop, pause, rest. It's all linked.
It is all linked. And it does, if you change your environment, so like even if you stop and just go for a walk, that just being outside, even if you're in a city street somewhere, it doesn't have to be in a field. I mean, like I live near a field, so I can go for a walk near fields, and I can go for a walk through trees, and it's not that is very restful. But I also understand that not everybody has that on their doorstep, and they just walking around and looking around, what you see around you opens your eyes, and when you come back, you've subconsciously refilled your creative well.
Yeah. One of the things I did was I'd set the timer on my stove for an hour. When God told me to take an hour with him, I laughed because I managed 10 minutes a day in that stage of my life. I had a house full of children, was working full-time as a teacher, which really means a job and a half. And so taking a whole hour to spend with God was crazy. But I knew I'd be watching my watch all the time. So I set a timer, and it was so delicious to just rest into that time and know I could do whatever I want until that, with God, in my Bible reading and praying and whatever, until the buzzer went off on my stove. You can do similar things on your phone, and you should get off your phone from time to time and rest from that. Have a digital rest.
Yeah, I see. I have a lunchtime alarm because I will just, mind you, I did work for my lunch the other day. The alarm went off for lunch, and then the alarm went off at end of lunch to return back to work, and I was like, oh, oops, I've missed lunch.
Yeah, but it wasn't good, was it? You felt guilty and all out of sorts because you mucked it up.
I've mucked it up, but I did stop and I go, right, no, I'm going to have lunch now. I will stop. But if I then give myself that rest time in the middle of the day, it just means that I'm replenished for the afternoon. I am just, and I try not to fill it up with too many household jobs like putting the laundry on, or,
I really admire, Donna, and I'm starting to do it more, is to sit down and eat your lunch, take a whole half an hour to an hour even, just to have that rest time in the middle of the day. Even if it's not all about eating, it can be about just sitting still for a bit. Really does boost you. I used to do that, actually. I used to rest in the afternoon before the children arrived home, in the middle of the afternoon at 3:00. What's this? Children out for a whole day? No such thing. It's not a whole day at all. But
No.
before the evening shift started as mum, I'd have a rest because, I needed that as a mother. But we need that as an artist. It's so essential. It's really, really essential. Please try and work out how to do it. I'll give you some information about Jorn's book, but obviously it's not published yet. Mudhouse Sabbath is a lovely book.
That is on the Amazon.
Yes, that you can get that one. I've read a lot of things to do with monasticism and being a contemplative.
Yes.
Because I tend that way anyway. But the whole idea that monks stop at they know how to stop. They know how to stop what they're doing and to pause and to pray and then go back. And they do it at set hours throughout the day in this wonderful discipline. And it's so restful to have the privilege of just stopping and going and praying. It's not a burden at all. It's a joy.
No.
And it's all, the whole day it's got this lovely, gentle rhythm. And you know that you're not going to be slaving in the garden for 3 hours because the bell's going to go to prayers in an hour and a half. And it's just a lovely thing to practice. And there's lots and lots of books on monasticism and Ignatian spirituality, Celtic fathers, all those people, they've all got this resting and rhythm. And you might think, how can I fit that in my day? But honestly, you only need 2 minutes. There's a couple of apps. There's 365. Is it called 365? It's
Lectio
the Lectio 365. Yeah. It's the 24/7 prayer.
Pete
people
Gregg.
do that.
Is it Pete Gregg?
It is Pete Gregg. Yeah. And there's also Pray As You Go, and they are Jesuit people, and they also do. And those are 10 minutes long, and you can put your headphones on in the car, or actually, I don't know if it's safe to do it when you're driving, but wherever you are, you can find 10 minutes to listen to those. Preferably sitting still and calm, but if you have to put it on while you're making the lunch or something, then it's a way of getting a bit of space.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to nature rests. Nature has seasons of rest. And that's what, winter is a season of rest. There is a season for growing. There is a season for harvesting. And there's a season for letting just a field go to waste, or to be fallow for a year, so you can rest the soil, so the soil can be replenished by actually allowing weeds to grow in it. And then you clear that out and then you replant.
Yeah. And fall, or autumn, proper name. Autumn. Yes. When leaves fall away, what do you need to have fall away so you can rest? Have a think about that. Honestly, this is really, really an important topic. But I think we should stop.
I think we should, because it's lunchtime.
It's rest time for our lunch.
Yes.
Okay, see you in the next podcast. Bye.
See you later. Bye.